Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Life in the Wildlands podcast, where we discuss exciting opportunities with outdoor careers, share professional experiences, and provide advice to overcome the hurdles to federal employment. I'm your host, Becky, and today we have Kaleena, Lynde, who is a firefighter for the El Dorado National Forest in California. And she's going to share how she started her career with the Forest Service Apprenticeship Program, her role as a public information officer on wildland fires, and provide advice to those that want to enter into a wildland fire career. All right, go ahead, Kaleena, and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Kaleena, Lynde. I work on the El Dorado National Forest here in California. I have been here on the El Dorado for 12 years now, maybe even 13. And then prior to the El Dorado, I was on the Shasta Trinity National Forest. And other than like some details to different areas or temporary promotions, pretty much been to those two forests. Haven't really jumped around much beyond that.
What is your position title now?
So currently I am a fire prevention technician or forestry tech fire prevention technician. And it's kind of a unique position in the sense that like the title really is vague, and so is the position. Kind of covers a lot of different things, and you don't really always are doing prevention. You're kind of like sometimes doing school programs or sometimes doing public community fairs or events within the community, or even helping with things completely unrelated like public information, or I guess that's not completely unrelated, but it's, not necessarily just fire prevention. So it's kind of like the jack of all trades or Jill of all trades position within the Forest Service in fire specifically.
And, I know that you worked previous jobs. As you mentioned, you worked on the Shasta Trinity and a few other forests. What other positions have you held?
Yeah, so the standard fire kind of pathway is, getting either seasonal for a few years and then going into the apprenticeship, or just getting an apprenticeship, which is what I did right out of high school. I went straight from, being 18, graduating high school, not really knowing what I wanted to do with my life. Kind of knew that I couldn't really afford college, but I also am not really the kind of person that enjoys sitting in a classroom and listening to somebody talk. I like to learn with my hands-on, being in the mix while I'm learning. It's the best way that I can learn. So I wasn't really too excited about the prospect of getting out of high school just to go into college. And when I found out about the Forest Service opportunity through, I was at work. I worked at like a supermarket, and somebody came in with like a Forest Service fire sweatshirt on. And I just was like, hey, what's that about? And they told me all about it and got me connected with their captain, which was on the Shasta Trinity. And they made sure I got all the training I needed to apply, which, the basic training for fire it's a 40 hours of training. It's pretty, it's kind of just very, very much just a drop in the bucket of what you need to know, but it's just the basic safety things to be a wildland firefighter, and kind of just to get an understanding of the fire environment and fire safety and leadership and all of those things. And so that training I took, it's free. Even some places even offer to cover, to like hire you as a trainee firefighter. Here on the El Dorado, we do that. We hire you as a trainee firefighter to take the training. When I took it, it was just free. You volunteered your time and took the training. So they helped me get my foot in the door that way. And then once I got through that training, which, like I said, it was just 40 hours, it was just 4 10-hour days. And then I got my application in, which, as we know, the federal application process can be a little bit cumbersome and frustrating at times. So they helped me through that process. And when my application came up, they offered me an apprenticeship instead of a seasonal position, because even back then, and it's kind of starting again now, but back then they really were trying to get more people into more permanent positions. The apprenticeship wasn't at that point like kind of how it is now, but still it was a path towards a permanent appointment. And they were really trying to get more people into those type of positions, similarly to like we're doing now. Now we're not only offering a lot of apprenticeship positions, but we're also offering a lot of permanent seasonal positions, which is a permanent position, but you work seasonally. So you work 8 months out of the year, have 4 months that you're laid off, but it is a permanent position with retirement and healthcare and all the benefits that come with being a permanent employee. So they were doing something similar when I was offered the job, and they said, we're not offering any seasonal positions, but we would like to offer you an apprenticeship. And I didn't really know what that meant. I just knew that it meant, and I just asked them, does that mean that I have a job for the summer? And they said, yes. And so I said, yeah, I'd like to try that. That sounds like fun. And I didn't, at the time, looking back now, I'm actually very grateful that I accepted the position. But looking back now, I realized I had no idea that that meant I was basically signing up for a career with the Forest Service. At that moment, I just knew that I wanted a job in the forest. I was right out of high school, and I kind of wanted to travel and see the world and really just try to get a feel of where I wanted to be at for the rest of my life. And I didn't quite know that that meant being in a career with the Forest Service. But I am now grateful that I accepted that position, because I did end up loving it, and I did end up sticking around. And are a lot of benefits to getting into this job early with our retirement in fire. After 25 years of service, you can retire at any age, or you can stick around to age 57, which is our kind of cutoff of when you have to retire as a firefighter. Getting in at 18, I can retire like in the next 5 years. Now I'm still fairly young, so I could either stick around with the Forest Service or look for other opportunities within the fire service or outside the fire service with all the qualifications I've gained. So there is a lot of benefits to kind of getting into it young, but there's also a lot of benefits to making sure that you like where you live, the stations that you work at, the people that you work with, the environment, all that kind of stuff too. So, but I was pretty grateful that I got my foot in the door that way. So after I was hired as an apprentice, the first 2 seasons I was on an engine. That's somewhat standard. Like, you usually are gonna, as an apprentice, you're gonna pick 2 of the 3 kind of functional areas, the main functional areas, which are engine, hand crew, or helitac. And those are pretty much the 3 primary areas. The way that it's set up is you choose 2 of the 3 that you're most interested in, that you can kind of work on for the years that you're in apprenticeship. But back when I did it, you actually had to do 3 years, and each year was on a different module. So when you're on an engine, when you're on a crew, and when you're on a helicopter. I came in as an apprentice pretty late, so I actually ended up doing 2 seasons on the engine to get my engine time, because you have to have a certain amount of hours in each position. So I was on an engine for 2 years, and then went to Shasta Lake Hot Shot. And then before I could move on to Helitac, I got cancer and couldn't fight fire operationally, but they made an exception for me, and really were super supportive in the fact that they knew that I couldn't work operationally, but I might be able to get back operationally. So they moved me into dispatch, and I needed dispatch time for my apprenticeship anyways. Like, that's part of it. You also do fuels, dispatch. Yeah. And prevention.
That's part of it
so
too.
that's part of it too. So it kind of worked out, because they were like, well, you need your dispatch time, so we'll move you into dispatch so you can do your dispatch time. But, also it was kind of neat, the situation that I was in. And so that was it.
Did that allow you to get your cancer treatments and work more light duty while you were going through that then?
Exactly. Yeah. Because I had like very depleted white blood cells, and they were worried that if I, was doing any operational work, if I had the energy for it, that if I was doing that work and I got cut or injured or something, that I might not be able to stop the bleeding. So I needed to kind of be in that more office setting during that time. And and it was like, I know that there's a lot of jobs out there that, you get injured, you get on light duty or sick leave, or workers' comp or something like that. But I just think that it's kind of unique and rare to have the type of jobs that we have, where there are so many other
Yes.
options
Uh-huh.
that it's like, okay, this isn't working right now for X, Y, or Z. I have a sick family member. I am pregnant. I have kids. I have a spouse that needs my care more than,
Mhm.
than they did before. Whatever the situation might be that comes up in our lives, because all those types of situations do come up in our lives throughout
Absolutely.
time.
All the
Having,
time.
yeah, yeah. So having the opportunity to be like, hey, I'm struggling right now. Like, I can't go fight fire for 1,000 hours overtime in a summer, but is there an opportunity for me helping out dispatch? Or,
Yeah.
there's even times people move into, doing some data entry for fuels work or working at the supervisor's office on some different special projects that are going on. So there
Mhm.
are options to kind of like help you out during those times that you might need different work environment, and you can't actually be in the field. And I think that's rare, and that is pretty nice to kind of have that
Yeah.
supportive feeling to know that you have that to fall back on if something were to happen.
And the
Um,
flexibility
so
too. I know I've gone,
yeah,
I've had my own fair share of family matters. And although I wasn't in fire per se, but the agency has been really great, with being flexible in those kind of situations. But just to kind of go back a little bit about the apprenticeship program, can you
yeah,
just provide maybe our audience a little bit more of an explanation on what that program is? I know you mentioned there were
totally.
several things that you had to do, but how does one even know, about apprenticeship opportunities? How can they apply? Like, what is it about?
Yeah. So a lot of people get confused because the apprenticeship and the permanent seasonals are very, very, very similar in the sense that they have both the same schedule. So they're both working 8 months on. And then when you're an apprentice, you're laid off for that 4 months as well as when you're permanent seasonal. So it's the same schedule. They're offered a lot of the same training and classes. So it's not, that's the part of it that's different. The main part of it that's different between the apprenticeship and the permanent seasonal is to move up or to promote as a permanent seasonal. You actually have to apply for the next kind of promotional level that you are in or above the one that you're in. So say, and this could get us on a whole nother tangent, but we work off of a GS scale. So general scale for pay, and there's different ratings. So GS3 is entry level, and then it goes all the way up to like, I don't know, GS 13, 14, 15. I'm not really even sure how high it goes, but
Pretty
um,
high up there.
so pretty high.
Yeah.
So, when you apply as somebody with either no experience or very limited experience with the working outdoors or, doing arduous kind of work, you're likely going to apply at a GS3 level, which is the most entry level position. Some people could apply at the GS4 level if they have experience, like similarly to me. I had experience working in a meat department. I grew up on a ranch, so I had a lot of ranch experience to put in my resume. So a lot of those things actually bumped me up to a GS4 qualification level.
Oh yeah, and you made a really good point, and this is something that I want the audience and people that I work with on the daily, like clients, that sometimes you don't think that your previous experience in a different realm will qualify you, but if you put it in your resume and you can show that you are capable of performing certain tasks even though they're not specific to fire or some of these other resources, that experience still counts towards something. And I think that's where people, especially trying to get into the federal service up front, is something that they sell themselves short on.
Absolutely. Like I stress that to people all the time is when I'm helping people build resumes and apply to jobs with the Forest Service and fire, they'll, for example, they'll come in and they'll say, the only thing I've done is like, I've never had a job. The only thing I've done is like help my grandparents with their farm. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? What did you do with your grandparents? Well, we mucked stalls, we took care of animals. I'm like, okay, did you ever help them with fence repair? Yes. Okay, that counts. Did you ever help them? Did you ever cut a single branch with either loppers, a chainsaw, or just
Hand
a
tools.
handsaw? And they're like, yeah, yes. Okay, did you use a shovel? Yes. Like all of those things correlate because you're performing the action, but just in a different environment. So, and
Exactly.
that's,
I think that's how I
yeah,
got my first job with the trail crew too. Is I'm like, well, I helped my dad build houses. I did a bunch of work. I know how to use hand tools. And so I think it's really important for people to know that, yeah, it's not fire related. That's okay, but you can
yeah.
still show and demonstrate that you can operate hand tools and things that you'll need to know to perform the work in a fire environment.
So those type of things to show in a resume, I think, are extremely important. But going back to the apprenticeship, so they're really the only major difference between the PSE and the apprenticeship is just to promote, you have to actually physically apply to that higher level. Whereas the apprenticeship, and this is where it's kind of like once you really get into this job, you'll learn all of these nuances. But when you look at announcement number, and that's how you apply is by searching for the announcement number. But when you look at that, the announcement number will likely say something like 0462, which is the series. We're all forestry technician, which is 0462. And then it'll say something like something, and then like a dash and then 4, and then a dash and then 5. So if it says 4 on it and no other numbers, it just says 4, then that means it's as high as you can go. That's the only position you're applying to a GS4, and you can't go any higher in that announcement. So the apprenticeship, when you look at it, it says 0462 3/4/5, which means if you're in that position as a GS3, a year goes by, you have a successful performance rating, you move up to a GS4. Like you don't have to apply to the GS4, you just automatically move into it with a successful performance rating after a
Oh,
year.
wow.
And
That's
then same
interesting.
thing same thing with the GS5. So if you are a GS4 for a year, you have all of the training, which, again, it's provided to you, which I think is another big thing that I took for granted until I kind of got higher up. I didn't think about, I told myself when I got into this job, oh my God, that means I don't have to go to college. Like I hate school. I'm so ADHD for me to like focus on school. It's just impossible. This is like a hands-on job. I don't have to go to school anymore. Not realizing that like every winter, all as I do is go to school. Entire career, every winter is
Yeah.
spent in training. Like that's all I'm doing is going to different classes, which is great because I'm doing it at work. I'm getting paid to go to it. It's the
Yes.
cost of it is being covered by the Forest Service.
Hmm.
My travel is being covered by the Forest Service. So it's like they're paying me to go to college in a way just to advance my qualifications so that I can become like a better asset of an employee to the agency. So like they're getting benefit from it by me gaining qualifications, gaining experience, gaining training. But I also am benefiting from that because a lot of these classes have college credits. I can basically almost get a degree at this point. I've had so many college classes that have credits towards it. So it's I told myself I wasn't going to go to college and I couldn't do it, but in the sense like that's exactly what I
Hmm.
did. It's been throughout my career. When the apprenticeship, it's a 3-4-5. When you're a GS4, as long as you get that training to become a GS5, because there's certain trainings that you need to become a GS5 in fire. One is S290, which is I think it's advanced fire behavior. Don't quote me on that, but if you Google NWCG S290, it'll come up. It might be intermediate, but I could be wrong. So you have to take that class, and then you have to be a qualified firefighter 1 IC5 incident commander type 5. And so that with that qualification and with that training, you can qualify as a GS5. So as long as you have those two things and it's been a year since you've been a GS4, you automatically move into that GS5, which is a lead firefighter position.
If you're interested in it, then it doesn't matter because you want to learn more. And
Yes.
it's not the same as going to college because you're not forced to take all these, general ed
No.
classes and whatnot. So going back, one thing I wanted to ask you is you mentioned that there was a free training that you took to get your basic 40 and wildland fire. courses.
Yeah.
So
So
how did you find that in a free environment?
there's a lot of different ways. Of course, I'm more on the El Dorado side. So, of course, I'm going to promote our own program, but there are other programs too. So, don't think this is the only one because a lot of forests out there, if you reach out to their fire program and ask them if they either have or offer a basic 40, and that's all it's called basic 40. If they offer a basic 40 for wildland firefighting on their forest, a lot of them will say yes, and they do. Not all. There are a lot of places that are really connected. The forest is really connected with the junior colleges. And a lot of times there's like a forestry division within a junior college. And the junior college will actually have the basic 40 as like part of their curriculum. The reason they kind of partner with them is one, it promotes the junior college more to kind of make some money off of providing that training. It takes the workload of providing that training off the forest, which is another benefit because it is a lot of work to host these. So you might find it through some junior colleges in your area, depending on where you're. You might find it on some local forests near you where you're from. But the program we have here on the El Dorado, we call it the readiness training. And the only reason we did that is just because it's a little bit more than just the basic 40. Like the basic 40, you actually can take it online too for free. If you are okay with death by PowerPoint, which if you're that kind of person that can focus, my hands go down to you because I can't.
Yeah.
But if you can focus on PowerPoints for about 8 hours a day for 4 days, 4 to 5 days, you can take it online. And I'll go over kind of where you can find that here coming up, but it is offered for free online as well. However, we do an in-person one. We call it the readiness training because we teach, I would say probably 70 to 75% of it in the field. There is some parts of the training that we just have to do in a classroom setting because you just need the PowerPoints to explain it. But for the most part, we are in the field. You are actually using the engines, you're deploying hose lays, you're using portable pumps, you're digging hand line, you're learning about all the different types of hand line that we make and that we build, why we build it the certain ways that we do build it, because people think that we just dig dirt, but there is actually like a reason that we do it the way that we do it, and different features in the terrain have us create things differently during fires to kind of hold the fire in different ways or to use the landscape to our advantage. So there's a lot of things like that you learn. So it's very, very hands-on. And then we also do physical training every day with the hot shots. So you kind of get a real feel of what an everyday day is like working in fire with Forest Service. And we had a lot of trouble in the past is when we did rely on that, either people getting it through a college where, again, most of that is in a classroom. So if they either got it that way or if they got it online through PowerPoint, they would show up, and after the first couple days of seeing how actually hard it is, they'd quit. So, and then we would have positions vacant on our engines and on our crews, and we were already in the middle of fire season. So that was the big reason why we started on the El Dorado doing it in person the way that we do it, doing physical training, doing it mostly hands-on, because we want people to, if it isn't for them, if they get out there and they're like, this is way harder than I thought, I can't handle this. We want you to know then when you're in the training,
Right
not
off the
when
bat.
you arrive for your, yeah, exactly. We don't try to break anybody. We're not there to like over exaggerate, the hardness level. That's not at all what we do. Like
Just
it's
showing the
actually
reality. Yeah.
it's showing the reality, and it's very like slow, methodical, explaining like a lot of people have never actually been taught how to use efficiently like hand tools. So if we're going to give you a Pulaski and you start swinging it and we see that maybe you're not doing it the most effective way, or you're going to get burnt out super quick because you're using your muscles a way that you're not going to be able to sustain it for 16 hours, we're going to stop and be like, hey, let me show you this, and actually try to like train people in the proper ways to do it that maybe they just never had experience before, because being around
It's a
quote
different
unquote
environment.
professionals, I mean, it's different. Like you using a tool for 16 hours all day long on a fire is going to be way different than you just grabbing it to do a little bit of work around your property
Yeah.
or your, parents' property or whatever the case. So that's why we do it in person. And to find that, we are offering that training. It's coming up in March. So if people can apply to it, they can apply to it up until I believe January 1st is the cutoff. So I'm not sure when this is coming out, but January 1st, 2023 is when we're going to start doing selections for the March training. But our website for the Eldorado is Eldorado NF as in National Forest Jobs, JOBS. So Eldorado NF jobs.com. And it's not a .gov, it's a .com. So just make sure you know that.
What our listeners need to know is that too, like the Eldorado National Forest also has a very progressive recruitment strategy. And so this isn't always available for a lot of forests, but I think what the Eldorado does is super great. And it's a great opportunity to work in a great place with great people.
You're very right in saying we were very grateful in having a forest supervisor that said, I am here to support you in getting the best people we can get to fill our forest. And if that means building a website and putting whatever you need to put on it to get people's foot in the door, then I'm going to be there for you. So I've had many people contact me from other places saying, how do I get to the whatever forest's website? And I'm like, they have a federal website, but it is not necessarily for recruitment. It's just for their forest. And you can call their supervisor's office and ask them questions. But beyond that, we're still a little bit behind on the right ways to get help people get their foot in the door, because it is very convoluted and it's very hard.
And that's why, I started Life in the Wildlands, because I recognize that. And no matter what the efforts that I put out there when I was working with the federal agency, with the Forest Service, it just seems like there is just never enough recruitment.
No.
And that's why I do commend the Eldorado National Forest, because I do think that program is very progressive compared to the rest. But it is important because we need more folks into these jobs, more boots on the ground. And they are some of the best careers you can have if you want to work outside. And so I'd like to ask, kind of moving on to my next question is there an experience that you had that really just confirmed that this is the career that you wanted to have?
So I felt like the first couple years, that I was doing this, it was more, I was young. I mean, right out of high school, 18, you don't even know who you are yet. And I think we're all still figuring that out, but I really was just enjoying the fact that I was working every day with some of my best friends, because the people that I worked with my first, few seasons are still to this day some of my best friends. And I was just so excited about this adventurous job that I was in, and I was, young and excited about it. But I remember when I was on the Hot Shots, we had the bar complex, which was on the Shasta Trinity, and we had been we had hiked in. It had been about 5 days of hiking, 4 or 5 days of hiking. And I mean, I think we were somewhere around like 30 miles in, somewhere between like 20 to 30 miles in on this trail in the wilderness at this point. And we were putting in direct line, and we were also doing some burning. And, we were just like really trying to corral this fire that was deep in the wilderness. And I remember sitting, like we had just kind of got our butts kicked pretty hard on this day. It was just a lot of hiking, a lot of burning, really steep, very, very steep, smoky, all the things that just kind of tire you out. And we had been spiking out, which means that you just sleep out in the wilderness with what you have. I mean, you pretty much just lay down and go to sleep. There's really you're not like actually camping. And so we found our spike camp for the night, and we were all just kind of getting comfortable. And I remember I found my spot was kind of down at this river bottom in the sand. And I remember taking my boots off, and my feet were super hot and tired, and just like putting my feet in the cold water. And I'm just like looking around at this landscape that was just still, even though like we were away from the fire, we weren't camping near the fire, but like just the view of this beautiful river and these huge mountains and these giant trees. and it was just stunning. And the sun was setting, and I knew that there was nobody else other than our crew for many miles. And just being out there like alone and knowing that like, okay, we're here in this incredibly beautiful place to protect it. Like we're trying to stop this fire from, burning up any more than it has. And we're out here in this view in this place, and it's just us. And like, if something happens, we have each other's back. We are here for each other, and there's probably not going to be access to anybody else helping us for a long while because we're so far out here. And I just remember feeling like how cool that was, and just how kind of unique and just memorable it was. And I remember just sitting there like thinking, wow, this is freaking cool. Like this is really, really awesome. And I'm getting paid to do this. Like this is something that I feel like people that have a lot of money, go on those experience trips, and they'll like pay guides to take them out in the middle of nowhere. And like, this is something that I'm getting paid to do. And there's been so many times that's happened in my career where I just take a second and I look and I'm like, I'm legit getting paid to do this right now. This is incredible. Like, when I had a helicopter flight out of a fire through Yosemite Valley, and like helicopters don't fly in Yosemite Valley. So it's like, you literally can't buy that experience, but yet I get to fly through Yosemite Valley on a helicopter, and got sent to Saipan to help with typhoon relief. And I mean, just the kinds of things. Yeah, I get paid to do it the whole time. And so there's not many jobs that, and I'm not saying that like my whole career is just day after day of like incredibly awesome stuff, because there is a lot of like just not exciting things to do in between those. But I'll say,
but those times that make it all worth it, though, when you get
it does.
And you're like thinking like, wow, I'm getting paid to be in this amazing place right now. And and that doesn't happen every day. That's the reality.
It doesn't.
But it definitely, those times make it all worth it.
And it has happened a lot. I worked with Becky a lot throughout when she was here on the El Dorado. Like we all worked together on trying to create this like good process to help people with the application process, because it is so convoluted. So like Life in the Wilds is taking everything that we figured out through a lot of mistakes that we made over the years on trying to get people jobs, and has figured out a way to help offer that to people in a way that gets them into the natural resources, into the forest type of jobs. And I think, reaching out to Becky, reaching out to me, anything that you need to do to try to like move forward and get that position that you want, we're here to help. Both Becky and myself, Life in the Wilds and myself, we're here to try to get you in where you want to go. And we're doing this because we love what we do, and we hope that you will love it just as much.
There are probably many more incredible experiences that you've had that can be shared, but unfortunately, that's all the time we have today. So thank you so much, Kaleena, for sharing your stories and all the helpful information for folks that might be wanting to pursue an outdoor career with a federal land management agency and fire. And thank you to our audience for listening in with us today. That was part 1 of 2 interviews with Kaleena, so stay tuned when we'll be talking with her again about what it is to be a public information officer. See you next time. For more stories about outdoor careers, subscribe to the Life in the Wildlands podcast, where I will be interviewing outdoor professionals to discover exciting opportunities in outdoor careers, share professional experiences, discuss the hurdles to federal employment, and provide advice on how to overcome these challenges. And if you're interested in outdoor jobs and don't know where to start, or if you already are a federal employee with an outdoor career that's struggling to make it to the next level in your career development, Life in the Wildlands can help you on your journey. Check out our career counseling and federal resume development services at www.lifeinthewildlands.com or call 406-848-1660.